From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up War Chant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Still waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up War Chant presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He is Corey Clark. We work for WarChant.com. You know that. Maybe you don't know that there's a really good promo code out there right now. Get you 50% off an annual membership to WarChant.com. It's FSU New Era. Put that promo code in, 50% off an annual membership, and you get to read of all the great stuff going on over on WarChant.com. Doesn't get you 50% off food at Zaxby's, though. You got to pay full freight, but it's worth it. It'll nourish your soul, mind, and body. Then we get my buddy's actually coming in town later tonight, and we always go out and grab dinner. Kind of running out of dining options, you know. It's going to be like, let's go to Zaxby's, man.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, my man.
All the restaurants around here, too, also close like at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're a college town. Like, what's going on?
It's bizarre, especially like in the summer. Like 8:30, you'll walk into a restaurant and they'll be like, sorry, we're closed. Right. It's like, what? Yeah. This is a capital city, folks. Get it together. Guess I'll go to a gas station. Get a Twinkie or something if I survive.
Should we moonlight? Should we open like a late-night restaurant that's a quality, though, not like a divey late-night restaurant?
Well, I feel like Zaxby's is there for everyone.
That's true.
Zaxby's is what we just put our money into Zaxby's.
Yeah. Tennessee Street location open till 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And in town, they're on Uber Eats, they're on Bite Squad, so all those food delivery services. We'll bring it right to your house.
Get you some.
Do it. Do it. Going on, trending right now, I guess perhaps you could say, as we record this show on a Wednesday afternoon for your listening pleasure. On Thursday, we're going to do Renegade Express, but one of the headline stories, apparently there's a groundswell of support, Corey, for one Odell Haggins as the head coach on social media. Good grief, there's like a dozen tweets from players. It's like a coordinated effort. Like these guys, like,
absolutely,
man, let's do
it's a concentrated, coordinated effort. So if you had any question as to whether Odell wanted the job, you don't anymore, because they wouldn't have done this without his blessing. I don't think Odell went to the players like, hey, guys, team meeting.
Yeah. If y'all love me,
you all got followers. You're on the gram. You're on TweetDeck. Get out there and say you want Odell. Sell it. Sell how much you want Odell Haggins. He did not do that. I don't think he did that at all. But I do think they wouldn't have done this unless they went to Odell and said, you know what I mean? Or let me put it this way. Odell by now knows all this is out there. If he wanted them to stop doing that, they would all be deleted. If he was like, guys, I don't want to be the coach. This isn't something I want to do. This is a distraction. Stop it. I think they would be deleted by now. So that even it's a tacit endorsement that he's okay with it. And good for them, man. I like that they're politicking for their guy. Now, obviously the administration is not going to take much into account what a 20-year-old football player thinks when it comes to the future of the program. But it is cool that so many guys love Odell and are saying all the cool things about him and how much he means to the university.
You know what's crazy is that as I scroll through this here, I'll start from the bottom and go to the top. Maybe, I don't know, that's how Ira laid him out. Class of 18, class of 19, 19, 19, 19, 19, 16, 17. I mean, these are. What I'm trying to say is a lot of these guys were Willie guys,
right?
Coming out supporting Odell, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, good for them, man.
Just gotta go beat Florida now, Coach. Piece of cake.
Beat Florida, man, and it is very much on the table. If nothing has been decided by then or announced by then, that is very much on the table.
All right. A lot of people upset at us. Well, it's funny, not like our loyal paid subscribers on WarChant.com, the best. Man, people on YouTube are just like, a lot of people are upset. They think that what we put out yesterday was like propaganda, was clickbait, was a traffic driver.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know, they thought that.
Guys, if you want to know when the new head coach is going to be announced, go to WarChant.com.
Well, no, they thought that. I don't know. You told me to pump the brakes numerous times.
I did.
The show. Hey man,
I did.
It's not official. I'm like, I know, but let me just dream a little dream.
Yeah.
Again, not to delve into the business model all that much. This whole we do stuff for clicks just doesn't apply to WarChant.com really.
At all? I mean, you could say we do things for subscriptions, which sure, but having somebody click on our page doesn't do us anything. Yeah. We make our money through subscriptions. I mean, there are ads, but that's not where the vast majority of our money comes from. It comes from subscriptions because we have people that do a very good job at warchant.com, and you want a year service to read their stuff or to listen to their podcasts.
Or get the insight of the news, which is a fluid situation, which at one point it did not. It sounded great, and then an update followed that kind of took some of the wind out of the sails, and then back on Wednesday morning, another update that kind of firmed up more positive vibes in the pursuit of one Bob Stoops. Mm-hmm. So that's just how it goes, and I'm going to react to it, and we're not a reactionary show by and large, but for this, I will, and I still feel optimistic about it. As we record this, on a Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Sorry to give it away. Why are you guys recording it so early? It's a Renegade Express. All the questions are already there. Might as well start answering them now.
If something happens in the next 7 or 8 hours,
we'll change it.
We'll just do another show.
It's gone on for too long for this to not be a serious thing. I'm trying to kind of play that scenario in my mind. I can see it to maybe a point where people can kind of say maybe FSU's being desperate to a certain point. Like maybe they're not taking no for an answer. Maybe Bob's like, nah, man, don't want that. And they're like, all right, well, give us like 30 minutes. Let's see if we can get some more money or it could be one of those things where Florida State just refuses to take no for an answer and keeps going back to Bob Stoops and his representative, and they're like, listen, man, we're not interested. And Florida State's not going to go out until Bob Stoops puts a restraining order against them calling him.
Right.
But I don't think it's that drastic. And I do think there has to be enough interest. There's enough educated people on the Florida State side of things to feel this thing out, to know that, I don't think they're going to chase it to spite themselves, to waste time, if you will, when there's other candidates that are probably not equally as qualified, but just as qualified to do a good job here, that they're going to keep hounding him if they don't feel there's a legitimate chance there. I know that people always say it's always about money. It usually is. I don't think money is and this is me, again, this is conjecture. This is me just kind of reading between the lines of Gene reading between the lines and providing some of the updates. I don't think it's a money thing. I do think there has to just be certain, there's certain things in contracts that it's probably going back and forth on, and they need to see if they can do that, and if that is enough to make him happy. Because, again, man, there's so many different ways he could have said no. Don't want this.
Yeah.
I'm not a candidate is not I don't want the job.
Right.
So, I refuse to believe that he's not interested. I refuse to believe the Florida State's going to let him go without just throwing every last bit of perk and –
Well, but you also have to remember the people listening to this show, Gene and Ira aren't newcomers. They're not rookies. They have a lot of people that they know in that athletic department. And if Gene and Ira are saying that things are ongoing, they're ongoing. That doesn't mean it's done. It's not officially done, or you would read about it on War Chant. But don't think that we just every day we come up with something new just to get you interested, to keep you interested. And Bob Stoops isn't really a viable candidate, but we're just keeping that dream alive. No, man, this is reality. Bob Stoops is a viable candidate. Gene isn't making this up. Ever. He's not. He doesn't do that. You can't do that and run a business, because eventually people would be like, man, this guy's full of doo-doo. I'm not going to be a subscriber anymore. The reason Gene has a really good website is because all this, he has connections and he knows stuff, and Ira knows stuff. And so believe that. That does not mean that Stoops is happening for sure, but believe that it's definitely a possibility right now.
And if it's not, Odell's got to beat Florida, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, nothing to worry about either way.
All right, with that said, let's get to it. I mean, we spoke to Leonard and the players earlier today. They've got a tune-up game against the Catamounts of Western Carolina on Friday. Be there.
Yeah, and Raekwon Evans, backup point guard, JUCO transfer that hasn't played yet. Leonard said he does expect him to play on Friday, at least a few minutes, and that'll be good. Moving forward, he could be a nice piece to the rotation. Yeah. But other than that, not a ton of news. Except that it was, I guess, National Signing Day in basketball, and the letters of intent for the 3 signees, including was it Scotty Barnes?
Yes,
is that his name?
Is, correct.
Should have been received by the time we're doing this show, and good news for all of them, because that's a really nice recruiting class.
All right, with all that said, it's time for the Renegade Express. All these questions come from our valued subscribers on the Tribal Council of WarChant.com. Renegade Express brought to you by First Commerce Financial. First Commerce Financial is a pure mortgage broker that works with several lenders to get you the best possible rate, whether you're looking to buy a home or refinance your current one. Their mission is simple, to provide transparent mortgage solutions to help you grow your overall net worth. They also eliminate the junk fees associated with most mortgages, which means additional savings for you. Heck, mention War Chant, they're going to waive the appraisal fee for qualified borrowers. To begin the process for your next mortgage or to ask questions, they invite you to call 248-207-2404 or visit firstcommercefinancial.com. First Commerce Financial, licensed in Florida, Michigan, Arizona, and California. First question, as we get to it here on Wake Up War Chant, FSU's biggest fan.
Oh, that's the name?
That's the name of the person.
Wow. You would have thought that had been taken.
They've been a member since March 12, 2007. This is their 12th post.
Okay.
So look at that.
One a year.
Go Noles! Who would be your Dream Bowl matchup for FSU this season? Mine is Tennessee because that's where I live, and I can't stand their fan base. This is actually a question we discussed on our roundtable. For me, selfishly, it would be the Gasparilla Bowl because
I think you said the matchup, though, not the bowl itself. Like, what team do you want?
That kind of ties into it. Yeah, let me play in the Gasparilla Bowl. Let me get one of these directional Florida schools, and we'll hang half 100 on them. Let's play UCF and put 50 on them. Take that national title from them.
That sounds good. I'm with you on that. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Georgia, I guess, would be a fun bowl matchup if you can somehow make that happen. Jacksonville would be cool, but I feel like you'd have to beat Florida to make that a reality. To play in the Gator Bowl, but I don't really have one. Probably, talking about destination, obviously Shreveport's number one on the list. Mm-hmm. Everything else is fighting for second. But team-wise,
A&M, you want A&M? You want Jimbo?
Yeah, nobody wants that.
No, I think everybody does want Jimbo.
I don't think a real Florida State fan would want this current incarnation of Florida State to go play Jimbo's team. Give it a couple years. After Stoops or Odell or Dion or whoever gets this thing righted again, then you're going to want to play Jimbo.
As I was saying on the round table, it's like this would be like getting in. The only thing worse than getting dumped is like getting beat up by your ex's new flame. It's too much risk.
Yeah,
not enough reward right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely right.
Not enough reward right now. A lot of folks are saying Nebraska. People respond to him saying Nebraska would be a really cool matchup. So
yeah, I guess that would be.
Noli moly, wake up! We are Florida State. Love 3 and Odell. 6 and Odell would be better. Yeah. Jordan Travis! ! Question mark.
That's the question?
One of his 3 questions. 5 questions, actually.
Oh, man.
Jordan Travis! Question mark. What's your thoughts on the O-line play from Boston College and just overall team demeanor? Has Odell said he doesn't want to be head coach? We kind of answered at the top of the show. Apparently not. What are your thoughts on that?
Don't you agree with that, though, by the way? That, like, if he had a problem with them doing that, they would not be doing that.
I think it's more of he had to have said something about, like, I would love to be your guy's head coach. I don't think he was hinting for them to do some sort of social media campaign, but he had to have said something explicitly.
Oh, so I wouldn't see that. I think it's more those guys getting together, like having a team meeting or sitting in the cafeteria and being like, man, why don't they just make Odell the head coach? And they're like,
or he's so awesome. We've had so much fun the last week.
Well, yeah, let's get on Twitter and politics for Odell. I think it was more organic than Odell even mentioning being the permanent head coach, because that would surprise me if he did that.
Okay. I saw that. Maybe.
But yeah, either way, I think that the fact that it was so concentrated certainly seems like he's, like I said, endorsing it. It's still there, so he's endorsing it to an extent. So yes, if he did not want to be the head coach, I think he would tell all those players. He would have told them hours ago, "Hey, delete that. I don't want to be the head coach." Okay. He'd have gotten the message to him, I think.
He also wants the honey fried chicken recipe. We don't have that. We can maybe get you the Zach sauce recipe, which is equally, if not better.
Much better.
It's much better.
Yeah.
All right, so Jordan Travis. Yeah, man, we get it. Okay. Y'all wanted to see the third-string quarterback, and he plays 2 snaps and 3 snaps, and 2 of them are for touchdowns. We get it. Y'all are.
It's a good hit rate.
It's a good hit rate, and I think Noel Holla said that he feels as we dismissed him and called him stupid when he asked this similar question, which I hope you don't think so, Noel Holla. Love you, man. Again, I just refuse to think that they saw this every day in practice and we're going to just save it for – I think Corey made a good point that I probably didn't help underline and emphasize. But the Miami game, right? Miami game, there's 4 games left in the season at that point, right? Or at least regular season games.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, you can, but the red shirt's not even a factor.
It's
with
not
him,
a red
though.
shirt, man. But I get it. Look, I don't think Jordan Travis is necessarily your starting quarterback. I don't think he was even in the running for that. I don't think they thought he was nearly as good as those other 2 guys. So why would you just give the keys to him and say you're our starting quarterback? But gosh darn it, that package could have worked against Wake Forest, and it could have worked against Miami to an extent. He's not running for 80-yard touchdowns against Miami, but on 3rd and 3, he might be able to wiggle through a first down and keep a drive going instead of the nonsense slop we saw that entire game, essentially. That seemed like a better idea because you couldn't run on him otherwise. You can't. If your only game plan to run the ball is to snap it to your running back, well, then you can't traditionally run the ball. But if you have a quarterback that can run and a running back like Cam Akers that can run, well, then all of a sudden you got something, right? And it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have had the Wild Trav in there for 5 or 10 plays in any of these. When you saw that, you're like, man, that could have really helped a lot of different games. Not that, hey, why isn't Jordan Travis your starting quarterback? But more like, why didn't you give a few snaps to a guy like that that's a playmaker?
What are your
It's
thoughts?
also Boston College's defense. Keep that in mind.
True.
Got to qualify it. That's a very slow defense, even for Boston College.
And they asked, what are our thoughts on the offensive line against Boston College? I mean, Cole Minshew, 55, Maurice Smith, 57, Ryan Roberts, 60, Darius Washington, 51, Baselli, 48, including a team low 21 in pass blocks. So they did not grade out well, but they figured it out, man. Which, again, I don't – the whole
part of that's James, part of that's game plan.
Yeah.
Blackman avoided some sacks and did some nice things with his legs. They did not run the ball well with Cam Akers. No. They ran the ball with Jordan Travis because it was a different look, and when you can't block it up front, you got to try different things, and it was good to see that they tried. Wild Trav, but the offensive line is still the offensive line. I guess they didn't give up any sacks, which is good, but they weren't dominant. They weren't even good. Aslan just read you the grades. That's why you got to do different things to make it work. That's why I still don't really have any confidence at all that they'll be able to do very well against Florida. But at least they have Jordan Travis now that can maybe get you a couple first downs with his feet.
I saw somebody a few weeks ago talk about they liked our show, but they thought we weren't analytical enough. We didn't talk about, we're not the nerd. And I don't say nerds like in a derogatory way, but just we're not that show, everybody. Sorry. But I'm really not sorry about it. But someone wanted me to explain. Aslan keeps talking about he doesn't think this offensive line is horrible. I'd like to know why he thinks that. It's watching enough football, and that sounds really condescending. I don't mean to come off that way, but just no one has a clean pocket all the damn time. It just doesn't happen, and I feel like there's this expectation that 2013 is the standard, like for an offensive line, which no, man, that's what you strive for. You hope you can get that maybe once every 5 years. That you're going to get an offensive line that blocks that well all the damn time. I did look this up real quick. Time in the pocket on Pro Football Focus. FBS quarterbacks that did a minimum of 150 dropbacks. So the amount of time they have in the pocket to make a throw. Trevor Lawrence, 42nd. Justin Herbert, 40th. Alex Hornibrook, 44th. James Blackman, 45th. Blackman and Hornibrook, their time in the pocket was ahead of quarterbacks from Stanford, Wisconsin, and Florida. Hornibrook, more time in the pocket spent than Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert. So there's times where these guys have opportunities to make plays. It's not a jailbreak every single
play.
damn
No,
time.
no.
It happens too much though, and I understand that. And these numbers are probably an equal number you could find that totally disproves that. And I'm not trying to say this offensive line is great or even good by any stretch, but
there's also a difference because how often is Florida State getting blitzed? I'm sure Alabama, they're not in the pocket a lot because you got to blitz. You can't rush 3 against Alabama. You'll get destroyed. The problem with Florida State's offensive line is they're getting beat by 3- and 4-man rushes repeatedly. When maybe these guys aren't different. So there's context to everything. But yeah, it's been better. It's been better than it was last year. It's been a bit of an upgrade.
And that's probably the one thing we haven't talked about enough, which is the fact that they put in Minshew, they put in Baselli, they put in Maurice Smith. Maurice Smith was a 2-star prospect, maybe a 3-star guy from Miami Central that was committed to Boston College and then kind of flipped. And it was, he's a project guy. Give him a few years, and he'll eventually become like
I would
a
go
center.
get all the Boston College commits.
Yeah. But for him to be the guy that was kind of being groomed maybe to be the next center, to step in there in Week 11 and start a road contest, cold weather, Boston College at the guard position and do a pretty good job. Again, just crazy how these things happen when you do a change. Benzo's on Saturday. Corey, Aslan, wake up! I'm sure most of the questions will be about Big Game Bob and Jordan Travis. I will selfishly touch on both. As for Jordan is concerned, he provided a huge spark. He obviously is explosive, but has yet to complete a collegiate pass. My question, did either you or Corey see him throw any at practice this year? And if so, what kind of arm does he have? Just curious. Not once the season started, but preseason we would actually, because they shut it. I mean, once the season started, all we saw
Who about Jordan?
Yeah, no drill.
Well, but we saw him in the
plenty
in the spring game. Yeah,
spring game, fall practice.
I mean, his arm's okay. He played in the spring game and I think threw for over 200 yards. He made some not great throws that made you shake your head, but he's a quarterback. The quarterbacks make bad throws. I don't know that he. Again, I just don't. If they thought he was a viable option, I don't know why they wouldn't have given him a try, because he can run. Mm-hmm. So if he could throw anywhere close to the way they want their quarterbacks to throw, or read the defense anywhere close to the way they need a quarterback to read a defense, whatever he's not doing, it has to be pretty far behind Blackman and Hornibrook, because you best believe Kendall Briles and Willie Taggart, for that matter, man. Willie Taggart's best season as a coach was when he had a quarterback run for 1,400 yards or 1,500 yards, whatever it was. So he desperately wants a quarterback that can run. And he's not dumb. He knows how much that would help an offense. So the fact that Jordan Travis didn't even seem to be a possibility makes you think that he wasn't anywhere close to those other two as far as running the offense, right?
Well, remember, Kendall, when asked about the quarterback during media day, said, I feel we have 2 starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
With the implication being James and Alex.
And the guys certainly weren't crushing it enough that if you thought Jordan Travis was a good option or as good an option, you wouldn't give him a try. You know what I mean? I mean, those legs are really something. Those legs are a nice weapon to have, man, and he still couldn't get on the field.
He's got legs. He knows how to use them.
Yeah. Rest in peace, ZZ Top.
They're actually coming to
they already came, I think.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They came to the Civic Center.
Are we going to the Third Eye Blind concert on Friday?
No, man, I'm going to be at basketball. It's a tough choice, but I decided to stick with basketball. We were talking about that at dinner on Wednesday night, how, in like 1990, REM came to the Civic Center. REM was the biggest band in the world.
In 1990? No, they were like 93s that come when they
whatever it was, 92. It was the Automatic for the People tour.
Okay.
So 92. That's a huge record. It sold 20 million albums. The record before sold 20 million albums, and they came to the Civic Center, and I can't remember who they said, the Cranberries or somebody opened up for them.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
What's wrong with Third Eye Blind?
I mean, they're not REM.
Freaking Athenians, just absolute snobs.
Well, we're snobs.
There's Jordan Travis throwing the football.
Yeah, man,
somewhere between James and Alex in terms of like velocity, mechanics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, actually, I've actually been in the habit of putting some video on our podcast that goes up on YouTube. So like when we play a clip from a coach talking, I'll actually put the entire video in there. Maybe I'll put some highlights of Jordan Travis throwing the football.
Okay.
There was also another part of his question as we get back to it. As far as the whole Stoops saga is concerned, tons of rumors and smoke. Maybe we have more clarity by the time this podcast airs, but in the meantime, I feel like there are 2 scenarios. Either it has been close to a done deal for a few days and the administration is keeping quiet, which I don't think so. Or that's me adding that part. Or he was contacted early. His heart really isn't in it anymore, but the money being thrown at him is so big that he has to listen. The latter of those 2 possibilities scares the hell out of me. What do you guys think? By the way, Aslan, large Wake Up War Chant shirt, please. I message you. Go Knowles.
Oh,
you want
there
me
you
to
go. Put that in there.
I'll mail it out today.
Yeah, the second part, I could understand that concern. Like if Florida State is doing everything it possibly can, throwing huge sums of money, giving them all this power within the athletic department, or some power within the athletic department, and he's still not completely sure he wants to do it, then what kind of coach are you hiring? Are you hiring a guy that's really all in and going to give you the 15-hour work days that apparently all these other guys need? Are you getting that guy? I could understand how that would be a concern. Because PJ Fleck, he's going to be working hard. He's going to be all in.
Yeah, rowing the boat.
Rowing everything.
Skim high, go Gophers or something. He's got some weird term.
Skim them high and go Gophers?
I don't know, something he
okay.
says. I don't know. I'm not too worried about that. People think, he's burnt out. He's coming back. I'm sure he's recharged. He'll be fine if he wants to come. He knows what he has to do. He knows what it takes to do this job. I don't think he comes back just for the vanity of it or for the money grab. He's doing all right.
No, but if it takes all this convincing, then you wonder, okay, well, why do you have to be convinced so much?
Well, it's
do you want to do this or not? You think you're going to get a better job offer than this?
No, probably think he's got a good life as it is. This XFL gig's pretty cushy.
But I guess you don't want to ever hire someone whose response to being offered the job is, all right, I guess I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that kind of, if the longer it plays out, the more it seems that's the response is like, they made me, I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And you don't want somebody that's their response is I couldn't say no, or I guess I'll do it. You want somebody that's like, absolutely, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like you were when you got this offer.
Absolutely.
You get to work with Corey Clark. You didn't even ask for what you were going to get paid.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you saw it or not. I was like, we just hired Corey. Actually, I think Gene told me that. He's like, you can't tell anybody. But he's like, we just hired Corey Clark. And I'm like, word?
You're like, what?
I'm like, oh, damn.
And
man.
you immediately got in your group text.
Yeah, I'm like,
big news, guys. Breaking media news.
I'm here to ruin Seminole headlines. How was headlines, by the way? I need to start listening to it again.
Yeah, we crushed it, man. We always crush it. What's the matter with you?
Bo Knowles, thanks, fellas, for the suggestion of the Cobb for my victory salad from Over-Unders. I got one last night. It was delicious. The girl said that was the first time they've gotten one of those vouchers out there at the Bradfordville location, so I felt honored.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Very nice. If we do not get Stoops, would you guys rather have an elite coordinator at a big-time program who has never been a head coach, i.e. Brent Venables, or a guy who has been a successful head coach at a smaller program but does not have experience at a big program, i.e. PJ Fleck or a Matt Campbell?
Yeah, again, I think Campbell and Fleck are a little different because they do coach in a big conference, even though they're not at quote-unquote football schools. They're in football conferences now. So it's not the same as getting somebody that's coached in the American Athletic Conference. It's just not.
Well, Willie had 1 year in a big time.
One year, less than 1 year, and really less than 12 months. So it's just different. I would be a little more comfortable with those guys in hindsight now because they do have that experience in big football conferences. And they have to recruit against them. They have to play against them. They have to game plan against them, all that. So they know it. I think Willie was just, looking back, was probably a little in over his head when it came. Well, it came to a lot of things, but recruiting too. Like it didn't take off like it should have. And as far as Venables, yeah, man, everybody knows how I feel about Venables. I think, me personally, that would be the second person I'd go after if Stoops says no, because like I've said on here repeatedly, the most. I think Stoops is the biggest slam dunk. He's not a slam dunk. He's more like a layup. He's not. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, but it's a really good hire if you get Bob Stoops. But a slam dunk is that you'll have a good defense with Brent Venables. Might not be good on offense. Might not be able to be a head coach at all, but he'll put together a good defense. That's appealing after what we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years around here.
Outside of Nick and I guess Kirby, who are the defensive-minded guys that are leading? Well, Orgeron, I guess, too. Maybe there is a renaissance. Maybe it is defensive guys are the in vogue thing now. That was the thing, Vanderbilt, when they hired Derek Mason, and this sounds crazy, people are going to chuckle. Like the AD sort of quote that he had when they hired Derek Mason was, if we want to beat Alabama, we need to have good defense. We need to be built like Alabama to beat Alabama. We need to have a good defense. So that's why they hired Derek Mason, a guy who had a really good defensive background. That obviously has not worked out the way they planned. I'm an offensive guy. Matt Campbell's is a little bit intriguing, but Venables, I'd probably go Venables. So those are all good. I think those are all kind of good options.
Again, and remember, the Venables plan also weakens your opponent.
Yes.
Which is key.
Take a leg out from them. A real quick question you mentioned in over his head. Is there a difference, what is being in over one's head? Is it not being capable of it? Or is
I think not knowing exactly what the job entailed when you took it over, not being familiar with,
or just miscalculating a bunch. That's
sure,
what I think
that could be it. And in over your head, in over your head implies that he couldn't do it. Yeah. I think if Willie Taggart, his only real Power 5 experience was Stanford, And Stanford's just different. That's not a real Power 5 school.
And he was a running backs coach, which was like the lowest on the totem pole.
And then you go to Western Kentucky, which is obviously a far cry from Florida State. South Florida is a far cry from Florida State. And then you're at Oregon for a year. I think if he had been in Oregon for 3 or 4 years and succeeded, I think he'd have been much more prepared for the Florida State job because he knew what it took on the highest level. Oregon's not the same as good a program as Florida State, but it's a reasonable facsimile. It's close, and you do have to recruit against USC. You have to recruit against Washington, and every school in the country comes out to the West Coast and tries to get players. So you're having to recruit against other really good recruiters and other really good programs. And I just think that would have helped him a lot to be in that conference for 3 or 4 years because it's just different, man. The Pac-12 is different than the AAC, and the ACC is different than the AAC.
Hey, let's take a break.
At Birch Orthodontics, they know what a difference a beautiful and healthy smile can make in your life.
They take the time to get to know you and perform a thorough exam so that they can make an individualized treatment plan just for you or your child.
They use the latest technology in a warm and comfortable environment. So whether you are interested in traditional metal or clear braces or clear aligners, they can give you the smile you deserve. They know investing in your smile means investing in your future. And at Birch Orthodontics, they are honored to be a part of your smile journey.
Serving Tallahassee for 16 years and supporting the Knolls since forever. Check them out at birchorthodontics.com. BURCH orthodontics.com. Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant presented by Zaxby's. Carlos Finch. Wake up! Aslan, Corey, love the show. I've been listening on YouTube for years now, even before you both were on the show. I appreciate what you guys do and keep it up. Looks like he just signed up here recently. And Carlos Finch would he would be one of the first guys on YouTube.
Okay.
He'd be like, wake up! Question, besides out of being lucky, what does Florida State have to do to best Florida? Thanks, guys.
Do you think you meant to say beat and mistyped, or do you think you really used the word best? I like best.
Yeah.
I really do. I like best as a
We'll give
verb.
Carlos benefit of the doubt. Best them.
I mean, you got to somehow – you're going to have to hit a couple big plays. I don't think you're going to be able to go up and down the field against them.
But they did against Boston College. And not that Florida is Boston College. But
Right.
they've been built on big plays. This hasn't been an 8-play drive team.
They played 2 good defenses and didn't do jack squat against either one of them. And Florida's as good on defense as are in the same ballpark as Miami and Clemson. So, man, yeah, you're going to have to keep them from scoring, and you're going to have to score more than they do. I don't know how that happens. I can't turnovers, get lucky with some turnovers, but he said other than getting lucky, but I think that's the only way you stay in the game is turnovers or some special teams plays.
Yeah. No, they got to be +3 on the turnover margin. They need to miss field goals, maybe a special teams block. And there is a possibility that Dan Mullen gets really cutesy sometimes.
Okay.
He's his own worst enemy. He'll run a fake punt when he probably shouldn't run a fake punt, and that possibility exists. I'm more of the thought that I think with him losing to LSU and Georgia, he realizes this is like his one true redemptive game of the season. I know Tennessee's a big rival for them, and they always enjoy that victory, but Tennessee's so bad. He knows it he needs to beat Florida State in the swamp handedly. So.
But when you look at that game, Florida has the better quarterback, the better offensive line, and the better defense. That's a tough matchup. You don't usually win games when the other team has the advantage of those 3 things.
Yeah, bunch of turnovers. Go for broke. Lots of blitzes. Get the turnover. Get the backpack back. FSU Todd with 1D. Wake up! Love the show, gentlemen. 2 quick questions. If Florida State had Alabama's schedule and win-loss record, would we be number 5 in the playoffs if we didn't win our division?
I mean, that's some hypothetical. No. Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt always. Alabama hasn't beat anyone, and I know they lost to a good team. They also gave up 46 points. Yeah. Florida State would be ridiculed and ripped mercilessly for giving up 46 points at home. But when Alabama does it, it's like, well, that guy's they're great. It's a great offense. What can you do?
But if Florida State was 8-1 and they had a win over Clemson.
I would assume the loss was to Clemson.
I guess, yeah. Well, he just said the win-loss record. Maybe a loss to Miami would still.
No. Florida State would have better wins than Alabama does, but no, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Alabama's getting the benefit of the doubt,
man. Which I think they should. Sorry, I know that it makes people upset, but that's what we were going on 14, and yeah. Also, Corey.
Well, the win-loss record was what you were going on in 14. You know, the big 0
right.
by that dash with the other number that was really big on the other side of the dash. That's what Florida State was going on.
But if they hadn't won a national title the year before, I don't think there'd be as
They're
much
undefeated in a
appreciation for
Power
that.
5, and they beat a really good Clemson team without their starting quarterback. It still boggles the mind. That was an awesome Clemson team. That's the only game they lost where Deshaun Watson played a majority of the game.
Yeah, if he started, though.
If he started, they probably lose. But Dabo,
They didn't, yeah.
Dabo'd.
Way to go, Dabo.
Yeah, hope you're happy, man.
Way to Clemson.
I'm sure that still haunts them.
Corey, what are you watching on Netflix right now?
What am I watching? I just watched a couple of episodes of World War II in color.
Ooh.
It's like this. It's really cool, actually. It's it's not stuff that most of us haven't heard before, but the footage is really incredible from the Battle of Midway, Hiroshima. No, that stuff's really hard to watch, actually. But it's really interesting. I was thinking about going and see Midway, the movie. And so I thought, okay, before that, let me watch this hour-long little documentary on Midway, which kind of turned the war in our favor back in 1942, maybe. And then so I watched that, and then I don't think I've watched any fiction shows recently. Have you?
No, I don't watch anything. I don't have Netflix either, but
I'm going to start watching The Watchmen on HBO. That's supposed to be really good. I'm going to start watching that. I'm going to binge that here in maybe another day or two. Maybe tonight. Maybe I got nothing to do. There's no basketball on. There's no college basketball on, really. No football on.
Maction, I think, maybe.
That doesn't count. So that doesn't count as real football. So I'm going to, I might just,
Is that based off a comic book?
Yeah.
Movie? I went and saw, my buddies took me to that movie 10 years ago. It was terrible.
Yeah, that movie wasn't great. I do remember that movie, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I think it was longer to go than that. But apparently the series is really well done.
Okay.
So just throwing that out there.
Nolfin Rob, wake up. Sad voice. Well,
I watched Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime. The John Krasinski, the guy from The Office, doing the Jack Ryan. It's all right.
That's great, right? That guy that's like a nerd.
He was a nerd. Now he's all buff.
Right,
he's a
yeah.
CIA agent.
That stuff
Yeah,
happens.
a killer. He must kill. No, spoiler alert, but he must kill 130 people in that show.
Really?
It's just crazy.
Maybe Steve Urkel can maybe Jaleel White can get a spot in the next Black Panther.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Real good casting. Nolfin Rob, sad voice. Well, looks like we may not only get our only choice. It's hard to get excited for another candidate after the high we were on. So who is Plan B? I'm afraid we may end up with a Willie Part 2. Have they reached out to anyone else during or after the first strike?
Again, they have a search firm. So whether Florida State has actually interviewed someone doesn't mean that the search firm has to have made contact with other candidates. Just has to. Just on a what would you call? I can't even think of the
Exploratory
word.
level?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, just like a introductory, hey, feeling
Would you
each
be
other out.
interested?
Would you be interested? Kind of thing. You have to do what else are they getting paid for if they haven't? You can't just go from.
Well, that's the thing. I thought search firms just give you a list. Like, hey, here's 10 guys we think that fit your needs. Now, we don't know whether or not they would actually come here.
Yeah.
But these are 10 dudes.
But I also think part of the role of a search firm, I would hope, is that they can be the intermediary so you don't have John Thrasher on University of Minnesota's campus. Yeah. So people don't know, you kind of avoid the spotlight and you can do some things behind the scenes where you're not official. And same with the coach. Like the coach can have a representative meet with the school without him having to be there, and then that becomes a thing at his university. So I think that's kind of one of the roles a search firm has. But we do not know. I'm sure there is a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. If those, otherwise, what are these people getting paid for to conduct this search? If they're just all our eggs at Bob Stoops, a guy that retired from one of the best jobs in the country because he just didn't want to do it anymore. And you're going to put every egg in that basket thinking that 2 years later, the allure of coaching a team that's lost 15 games, 17 games in 3 years is going to be enough to bring them back. You have to have other baskets with other eggs in them.
Put everything in the Stoops. Can't think of anything. You can't even let the thought that you don't get them creep into your mind, or else it's going to happen.
But you're right. You're thinking into existence. Exactly right.
Who would they have hired if Willie would have said no?
I don't know.
Where would I kind of do wonder where that would have gone. Do you know how much Georgia paid a search firm back in 2015?
Yeah, didn't you say it was like $90,000 or
$42,000
to go tell him Kirby Smart's an assistant at Alabama? Otherwise, they probably didn't even know what's Kirby up to these days? Is he still in football?
Well, it turns out, wait, he's from Georgia.
He went here.
He went here as well.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Oh, well, let's see if he'd be interested.
Didn't even think about that.
I mean, they had literally been talking about Kirby Smart to Georgia, I would say, since 2013, at least. I mean, that was his name every year. Every year Rick wouldn't get fired, people wanted, please fire Rick so you could bring in Kirby Smart. Yeah, those things. Some of those search firm deals are kind of a sham. That's just a waste of $42,000.
It is a weird balance of,
This is different though. There's not one like absolute definite candidate that you know will come if he gets offered.
There's not football guys really involved in this search the search process from the Florida State side. Like, David Coburn does not have a background in college athletics. Neither does John Thrasher. Neither does Ed Burr. So there is some people might have like some sort of trepidation with that, but then, so many quote football guys, Phil Fulmer, made the Jeremy Pruitt hire.
Yeah.
Vince Dooley, who would Vince Dooley hire? He probably hired a couple bad dudes, I imagine, right? That didn't work out for Georgia.
I mean, yeah, Jim Donnan and Ray Goff.
Yeah,
those weren't great. Those weren't home runs.
Yeah, so you got business-minded guys. So I'm sure they obviously
hired Glenn Mason too from the University of Minnesota, and then Mason took the job, and then 2 days later said, "Never mind, I want to go back to Minnesota," and that's how I think that's how they got Donnan.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Imagine staying at Minnesota instead of coaching at the University of Georgia.
So yeah, those guys will figure it out. And I just wonder who would have gone if Willie would have said no. I wonder who would have gone with.
Who were even the big names back then?
There was nobody. That's the thing. That was like the work. Like Florida State, you joked about. Like Florida State really has never had an open football head coaching search in 40 years, and the 1 year they did was just probably the biggest dearth of coach. I mean, that was.
And it really did. I know. Again, we've talked about this. That people say that Jimbo was out the door after Francois got hurt, but they really were not prepared for it. Yeah. They were not prepared for it. I think even that week they thought there was a chance Jimbo was staying. So they had it was such just a rush. I don't know, maybe Scott Frost. Maybe that's somebody, but he wasn't going to say yes to Florida State.
Chip Kelly wasn't going to come here over UCLA.
Right. So, you'd have had to probably go a similar path of Taggart, a guy that had been winning
James Franklin and Charlie Strong were the only two other names that I heard at that time. And I heard that, via War Chant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Franklin obviously I think would have been a really nice hire. Strong wouldn't. But yeah, you would have had to go somebody that didn't have the bona fides of a Bob Stoops.
Yeah, so I think Matt Campbell is a lot better option than what we endured. ST1300. Any inside leaks from practice on whether the Knoll drill is gone? I'll hang up and listen like an empty Chick-fil-A drive-through on a Sunday. Hashtag Zaxby Zing. No, I don't know, man. That is like the one question. That's the second question I want to know. The first question.
I was wrong. They hired Mason from Kansas. Georgia hired the Kansas head coach. He said yes, and then decided, no, I want to go back to Kansas. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
SEC.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I don't. He had a really good joke. Tell me I had a good joke, Corey, because you weren't paying attention.
Oh, well, hear it. Let me hear it again.
Any inside leaks from practice on whether the Knoll drill is gone? I'll hang up and listen like an empty Chick-fil-A drive-through on a Sunday. Hashtag Zaxby Zing.
That is good. Sorry, man. I apologize for not listening the first time. I wanted to see if I was right about Glenn Mason. That literally nobody listening to this cares about but me, but it's my OCD kind of piling on right there.
I just want to have the knowledge. You want to give the people the correct knowledge.
Sure. Exactly.
Surely somebody's going to talk about Glenn Mason, Kansas, Georgia.
That's going to come up in conversation at some point. The holidays are coming up. Yeah. You got to talk about something.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard. That's another thing I'd like to get an answer on is whether or not Tuesdays, maybe even Wednesdays, because when we were out there last year, we were able to watch practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, and when they had the media viewing portion, it was And Knoll drill, by the way, Knoll drill is different than the Oklahoma drill, which is different from what they've been doing this season. What they've been doing this season is that quasi 4-on-4 drill, which is not Oklahoma. It's not bull in the ring. It's not Knoll drill. Knoll drill was O-line on D-line, linebacker on a receiver, or no tight end, and then receiver on a cornerback, just like within a 15-yard linear, 5-yard wide alley, and it just was nonsense.
I'd be interested if they still did that. Obviously, like this listener who's asked this because he's interested too. I would be surprised if they didn't. That would be a really big like pivot? And is Odell going to be like – because that would tell everybody on that field what Odell thought of that drill. And would he be willing to do that? Maybe he does. He made them wear their uniforms in pregame. So maybe Odell's like, this is pointless. It's worthless. We're not doing it anymore. Yeah, you're right. We should get to the bottom of that. I want to know.
We'll find out.
I know they still practice. They still practice on Sunday. I was wondering about that. And then
which that was a Jimbo thing, too. I think that's terrible. And I know that.
And they still practice on in the morning.
Oh, of course. They can't change it.
They can't change it now because of the schedules. Yeah.
Players. Academics come first. But, yeah, ST1300, good question. We'll try to find the answer on that for you on the Friday show, maybe. But I will try to get to the bottom of it, I promise. NYC Knoll, what's good, fam? If 3 Odell had remained head coach from when Jimbo left, we would be the current defending national champions, wrapping our second undefeated season and firmly on a collision course for Odell versus Ogeron, mano-a-mano national championship showdown. Convince me I'm wrong.
I mean, you're wrong. The offensive line is still the offensive line, even with 3 Odell. And I don't even know if their record. I think it. I don't know, man.
Coming.
Yeah.
We coming.
Sure.
Strong.
If you expect me to do like an Odell voice to have this conversation, you are sadly mistaken.
I think he just wanted me to talk in the Ogeron voice.
Probably.
Happening. Convince me I'm wrong, Coach O. No. You got to look at the way the polls are going. ACC's weak down here. Don't think they get past Dabo. Much respect for Odell, but we're going to win.
And what do you think their record would be if Odell had stayed?
We're talking about 18 or right now 19.
Both. The whole night, the last 22 games.
I think they beat Virginia Tech in that opener, and I think that puts them on a trajectory.
There's no way he knows the word trajectory.
Also, since you asked, by the time I listen to this, I will be well on my commute on the R or E train in the beautiful borough of Queens.
Okay. It's not the J or the Z. He's not on those two trains.
My buddy used to live in Queens, Astoria.
Okay.
Heavy Greek population, lots of good food. It was good.
Would you ever live in New York?
Not any longer.
I don't think I can do it. I
probably had a window that I could have, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't get on a subway at my age. Just dealing with it. My buddy who's coming in town is from Jersey, so we'd always go into the city. And we would go on the subway, and he wouldn't let me talk to him. Like, you have to have a certain attitude on the subway. He's like, dude, just don't even talk to me, man. He's like, just
really?
I'm like, I can't even look at him and make comments. He's like, dude, don't even talk, man. Let's just.
Yeah, but it's just everything about
he does something
the city.
on the MARTA, though, dude. When we got on the MARTA and when he's living in Atlanta, he'd be like, dude, just.
Oh, all right.
He gets really in the zone.
Just, I guess, he's in a public transportation zone.
Like, we don't talk.
Yeah,
man.
all right. Okay.
We're not going to be those people. I'm like, whatever, man. I'll talk to you, man. I think it's weird if you don't talk to each other and you know each other.
That is really weird.
Yeah, I could have lived in New York City a while ago, but no, that ship's
It's so expensive. It's good for you, though, because I would have walked everywhere. Like, I don't want to be on the subway that much. I'm not getting in a cab or a bus. So I would walk everywhere. But, man, it's just so busy. And it's just a different, people are people, but they're, when you grow up in Georgia and everybody's, like, over the top polite, it's really, really jarring to just have people straight up aim at you on the sidewalk. Like, I'm not moving. We're going to play chicken, and I know you're going to move because I'm bigger than you. That's just an odd way to live life, and people bumping into you and saying, watch out. It's I don't know that I could handle. I don't think I could have handled it ever. Not even when I was younger.
Frozen Flow 03. Wake up! Good morning, guys. Love the show. Been listening for several years. Keep up the good work. Been making the morning workout and commute easier these days, so thank you.
Oh, you think people work out listening to that? I guess they would do, right?
Probably hear my voice like, man,
I got to get this up. I got to get this up. Yeah, get 300 up. Come
Uh,
on, do it. Get 300 up.
I'm from Niceville, Florida, home of the Emerald Coast Classic college basketball tournament, and our Knowles will be playing in this year. You guys should come up and broadcast or something, or just come up for the heck of it. Would be cool to meet you guys. Also, a brand new Zaxby's just opened up. On to my question. What are your thoughts on seeing either the current coaching staff or our new staff getting fired up and into a player's face when inexcusable plays or penalties are constantly being committed, or even if a bad call went against us, to see a coach throw a headset or show some aggression? A little motivation or something out of the staff would be great. I know when I did something wrong and someone got in my face, I strained up quick. Your thoughts on it, guys. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you all do. Mike. I dig it, man.
Yeah.
I know it's a different time and an era, and you can't snatch people by the face mask, and you can't yell at people. And I personally probably don't want Gene yelling at me. Horrible show, Aslan. You suck.
Right.
But it probably would change the way I performed. I think in football, and they talk about this on the Rosillo podcast a bunch of times, it's different. It's weird. You can't compare football to being in an office setting. I think there is a bit of coarse language and tough talk and tough sort of reactions that need to be commonplace to keep people in line and performing at their best. I mean, I wasn't over the moon about Kendall throwing a tantrum, but I was like, wow, look at that. Like, I didn't even know he had that in him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people react differently to it, right? Some people need it. I heard Steve Kerr talking about Draymond Green and how Draymond Green almost has to become a maniac. He has to intentionally seek out conflict to make himself play well. So he likes it. He'll yell at Kerr, and Kerr will yell back at him, and then they'll have a real blow-up, and Draymond will say some crazy stuff to him. But he knows it's good for Draymond because it's what Draymond needs to play at that motorized level where he's playing so hard. But, man, you can't treat Kevin Durant like that or Steph Curry like that. You know, you got to –
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, Kyrie Irving be like – he would just shut down and quit basketball. So there's different there's different ways to handle different people. And, you know, I do remember one thing that I really perked up on when Jimbo said it was when he was talking about it must have been 13. It was right after EJ. And he was talking about how – because he's always just coached quarterbacks the same way. And now I don't know if it ended up manifesting itself on the practice field or how much it did, but he did say, he admitted, sometimes you have to treat different guys differently. You can't all coach them the same. And it's like, man, I feel like if you'd have coached EJ not so in your – I don't think EJ was ever fully unleashed how good he could have been, because I think Jimbo beat him down a little bit and it kind of ruined his confidence a little bit. Not ruined it. I mean, he was still a first-round pick and a good player, but I think he coached Jameis a little bit differently than he coached EJ. And I think he learned his lesson from that with EJ, maybe. So anyway, yeah.
EJ walks so Jameis could run.
There you go. Perfect. And Jameis is better than EJ, too, so that helped. I will say this. They showed Odell. Did you see the hype video that Seminoles.com
yes,
put out?
Well done, by the
really
way.
well done.
Well done, guys.
And Odell, and I think it was it pregame he was talking to him about? I think it was when they showed him in the locker room pregame.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing one video, not one, of Willie Taggart talking to his team pregame. It might be out there, but I don't remember the university ever putting one out.
No. There was only one bit of video locker room with Willie, and it was him blowing the whistle like they were dancing when they beat Boston College last year.
Okay.
That was the only official Florida State, and I think it was a Florida State Seminole thing. They not Seminole Productions, but the university produced it or whatever. I don't even think it was like a captured Snapchat.
And that doesn't mean that,
anything.
again, we've always said, I don't think Willie's the same guy in front of the cameras that he is in a locker room. That doesn't mean that Willie just sat there and talked in that monotone voice. Come on, guys, we got to, just got to go out there and get them. You got to beat them. Got to make plays. Learn how to win. I don't think he talked like that necessarily in the locker room. He might have just not wanted people in his domain, in his sanctuary, to film him talking to his team. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it just wasn't anything that was all that inspiring. Yeah.
I don't know. We keep hearing about the Knoll way. Odell talked about it. Dedrick Dodge mentioned on the program the other day. I do think there is a bit of toughness that has to come with demanding excellence out of people, and I don't know if there was a lot of that previously. Backwoods Hick Knoll. Wake Izzy. Thanks for keeping it interessante this season, fellas. Corey, I didn't get to tell you that when you asked Taggart after the Miami loss if he, quote, considered it a significant setback and he seemed clueless, well, I knew the end was nigh.
Okay, yep.
Anyways, love me some Odell, and while I wasn't keen on Fleck at first, after I saw the Penn State game, I'm on board for him if Stoops bounces. Don't do that. Don't look at one game, everybody.
Well, I feel like it's the 8 other ones prior to that. Did you know? I didn't even know this. Brady told me this. Brady, of course. We were having lunch with one of my buddies, and he's like, yeah, Minnesota almost lost their first 4 games this year. I'm like, oh, did they really? He goes, I'm sure he saw it on the bottom line, but he's like, yeah, they won their first 4 games by a combined 17 points. And I went and looked, and one of them was Georgia Southern. Mm-hmm. They beat Fresno State 38-35 in overtime. They beat somebody else by 6 points. That's why they were ranked so low, is because they struggled to beat some mediocre football teams. But hey, man, they're believing now. But if those 2 games, if you lose to Fresno State in overtime, and if you lose to Georgia Southern, Nobody's even thinking about P.J. Fleck. I feel like they got a little bit lucky in the early part of this season. But, yeah, that Penn State game was impressive, man. Not just impressive because they beat a good team in Penn State. I mean, Penn State kind of screwed that up and had some bad turnovers in the red zone. I think they're a better team than Minnesota. But that crowd, man, what do you do to that fan base?
Yeah.
That was a legitimate fan base for that game. Yeah. That was really impressive. Just how galvanized a school that is not – they haven't been 9-0 since the car was invented. Literally, I think it was like 1904. The car wasn't even around. The people that went to that game rode horses. That's the only way they could go watch Minnesota football is to ride in a carriage. And then for that program that's not had any real tradition – to be that locked in and excited about that football team, that's a good sign. Whether you won that game or lost that game, those people believe in that dude. And I'm sure, I know he's an infectious dude, and I'm sure that if you got him here at Florida State, people would rally up and be really, really excited about it until the game started. That only lasts until the game. You got to go win games too.
It just might be right guy, wrong time, though, kind of a thing. Like, I think if they would have hired Venables after Jimbo and you had like a really hardcore, maniacal coach and it didn't work out, then you can bring in like a fluffy, I shouldn't say, I don't want to be like a pejorative, but just he has a different managerial style. And I don't know. I think this program would not be where it was at if they had somebody that was closer aligned to what Jimbo was trying to somewhat sustain, even though he checked out. Because Willie did try to do everything differently. And I don't think that was the right course of action. I think that precipitated accelerated the.
Yeah, and I think that was a mistake in hindsight. Obviously, it was a mistake, the coaching hire because of how it played out. But like, we want to go away, and I don't know if that's even what their thinking was. It just happened to be Willie Taggart was their top choice, and he happened to be this kind of person. Yeah. But it seemed like they wanted to go away from that Jimbo.
Yes, absolutely.
But that it was a 4-day hire, so who knows who else they were looking at. But I think in hindsight now you don't want to do another 180 swing back to anything. You go get a coach that you think can coach and win football games. No matter how they do it, just go get somebody that can do it.
My thing though is, again, like, Minnesota was not a really terrible program. They had 9 wins the year before he showed up, and then he dropped down to 4 or 5 wins. So I mean, that's the thing. There was like a course correction with him, like wherever he's been. I mean, Western Michigan, I think the first year they won maybe one game or. So they
we'll have Odell be the coach for like the first half of next season.
Right,
then
seriously,
PJ comes in,
because that's the thing that no one can come year one here and not win. Whoever gets hired, man, like you can't go 6-6. Like you just can't.
Well, you can.
No, you. I don't think. I don't think so, man.
Whatever happens, happens. I mean, the program the earth will keep spinning. It won't be great if you go 6-6.
Weldon, let's take maybe two more or so. We're approaching an hour. Weldon FSU 73. Weldon FSU 73. Location Athens, Georgia.
All right. Well,
good morning, fellas. With the coaching search in full throttle, do you think the new head coach will keep Odell on staff?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Imagine trying to explain that to the fans that unless Odell gets genuinely upset that he didn't get the job and kind of goes on his own. But no, I can't imagine that a new coach would come in and not keep one of the best defensive line coaches in the country.
Let's see here. Drill Sergeant Porter. Wake up, guys. Great show, but you already know that.
True.
Odell has not beaten any great teams or big-name teams. He has beaten the ones FSU is supposed to beat. That is where we need to get back to, beating the teams that should never be able to hang with us. Just my 2 cents. Side note, Dion contacted me. I'm a candidate to be the next quarterback coach at FSU.
Oh, congrats, man.
Go Noles.
Hope that happens. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, again, that was one game, 3 games really, but those 2 games he coached the last time were the 2 best games they played all season. And then this, you could argue, the defense just isn't any good. Maybe the NC State game was better, I guess, or the Syracuse game they played better. I don't know. I feel like that was the best they played all season. Would you agree with that?
What?
The Boston College game.
Oh, yeah.
The defense isn't any good. They still gave up a bunch of rushing yards and a bunch of points in the fourth quarter. But that's because they're that defense. But they played hard, man. They went and tackled, and they were physical. And that kid felt those carries. He had 40 carries.
And they were down and they came back as opposed to being up and
then holding on.
Yeah,
Man, absolutely. It was those are that's probably the best win of the season for a variety of reasons. And then I thought those 2 wins in 17 were their most impressive looking wins of the season. Maybe that's not a coincidence. And it's we can dismiss who they because of who they played, but it's also the way they looked, and they did look different. So good for Odell.
Knowles MG4, wake up! Good morning, my favorite podcast. My question is, where do you see Coach Haggins in the search? Do you think we just put the money into assistant coaches and follow the blueprint from LSU and Coach Orgeron? Thank you, as always. 5 stars on every episode. Yeah, I mean, if you go with Haggins, that's what you're doing. You're going to do the LSU blueprint. It's going to be, all right, who is the absolute best offensive coordinator that we can get you? Maybe we keep Kendall. We'll throw everything we can at Jim Leavitt to keep him here if you think he's a good enough defensive coordinator for you, Odell. And, yeah, I mean, and then and I think that's what you get. You have a really good defensive coordinator, really good offensive coordinator, and then Odell you take the personality of your head coach, and you're going to have this hardworking, no-nonsense, blue-collar guy that's the standard that you're going after, and then that's who you want to portray yourself as a football player for him. So, yeah, and then I have nothing wrong with that. I mean, I did, and people are like, well, you had a problem with them giving Willie all this stuff. It's like, well, Odell's got a little more equity with me than Willie Taggart. And again, Taggart, I think a lot of what he was, not his fault, but he was marketed as to the fan base was this offensive kind of dynamo, this guy that had really well-run explosive offenses, and
he was the play caller.
He was the play caller last year, did not work out well at all, and then this season, again, some meddling starts happening, and we kind of coinciding with the regression of the offense. And then he leaves, and then you hang 38 on the road. So
yeah, I mean, I like the idea of. I'm certainly not against the idea of Odell. Let me put it that way. He's not my first choice if I'm Florida State. Obviously, he's not.
Right.
We know who their first choice is. I don't know if he's my second or third choice. But if I get to my fourth choice, like I said earlier this week, or my sixth choice, and it's between the Memphis head coach, Norvell, and Odell Haggins, it's going to be Odell Haggins, and we're going to get some people to work around him because I do think he's good for this university. I think he would be a guy that they could rally around. He could be he's like somebody that I think the FSU fan base would rally around. There's two things that would concern me though. Number one, he's not Orgeron in the sense that Orgeron had been a head coach at an SEC school for 3 or 4 years. Odell's never had to do that.
A failed SEC coach.
Sure. And then was a head coach at USC again. He actually did pretty well there, right? Yeah. But
lost the game though. He wasn't undefeated as interim coach.
Right. He had been in that role before. So even if his team didn't win at Ole Miss, you knew he wouldn't be surprised by the job. What everything that is entailed with this job. You don't know that about a position coach. You just doesn't mean he can't do it. Dabo did it. But it doesn't mean you just don't know how he'll handle the role of being the head coach long term, because it's so much different than the novelty of the short term of rally around me. I'm one of you guys. I was here. Play hard for me. I'm going to let my coaches coach. Well, man, you got to go now hire coaches. It's not just letting the guys on staff coach. You've got to go make hires that are good for Florida State football. Do you trust Odell to make those right hires? That's something you'd have to keep in mind. And there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. So, and what if he loses to Florida?
Right.
What if you lose 46-14 to Florida, and you don't look any different than you did any time Taggart played a good team? Right. You get embarrassed. It's over by halftime. How do you sell that? How do you sell it? How do you say, okay, this is the right guy? So those would be my two concerns. Now, if they play Florida close or beat Florida. Man, I'm telling you, I think that train would get a lot of momentum. Mm-hmm. If they just look different, if they look like an old-style Florida State team that cares and plays hard and rallies to the ball and makes some plays on offense, yeah, man, that would get some momentum. And I hate putting so much credence or pressure into one game, but I do think that Florida game will tell us a whole lot.
Which they should have done last year. Everything was on the line last year. The winning streak, the bowl streak, everything. At home against Florida.
Yeah.
This team looked terrible.
They did.
One of the concerns I think people talk about PJ Fleck. He's like a used car salesman. I don't know if I want a guy like that to be my head coach. I do think there is a bit of like showmanship that you need to have to really recruit at a high, high level. And I think like Odell's down-to-earth, humble kind of approach, like I think the people that eat that stuff up will eat it up. But I do think you need to have a little bit of like swagger and just arrogance almost to walk into so many houses and be like, listen, man, like I'm the best coach for your son. Like I'm going to be able to take care of your kid the best. He's going to have the best education, the best opportunity to become a professional football player by coming to the university that I'm heading up now. I think it's like when Nick Saban comes in the house and Dabo comes in the house and then Willie Taggart comes in the house, there's a different, sort of gravitas and resume. And it would be the same way when Kirby Smart's going into a house and, Ed Orgeron's going to a house, and then Odell comes into a house.
Maybe. I think with Odell, though, I do think when you're talking about recruiting and you hear that guy who's been a lifer at the school you'd be sending your son to. So he's not leaving. He's not leaving for a better job because this is his dream. Talk about really a dream job. And also he's got 2 national championship rings he can flash. He's got Deion in his phone. Deion was his roommate and a really good friend. He's got all these connections to the Florida State glory days of the dynasty and of the Jameis Winston days. Like, he's a part of all that. I think that does sell itself a little bit. Okay. He's not like a slick Nick Saban rolling in and saying everything that needs to be said, but I do think his resume, while not on the caliber of Saban and Dabo because of they've been a head coach and won national championships as head coaches, he's got a pretty darn impressive resume if you just look at the numbers and how long he's been there, who he's coached. And I think that would play in a recruit's home, in my opinion, that would play in a recruit's home a little bit more. I keep going back to it, but like a Memphis coach. Or even PJ Fleck, for that matter. I mean, if you're a kid in Tampa that's thinking about coming to Florida State or going to Georgia, Kirby's accomplished about the same things that Odell has, maybe. Odell's been doing it longer. I know Kirby was a defensive coordinator, and he's done it more recently, but, Georgia ain't winning the national championship this year either.
Well, they played for it a few years ago.
They did, and he blew it, didn't he? Old Kirby blew it. Odell's team didn't blow it.
I think, defensive, he'll kill it on the defensive side.
The offense is going to be more about who your OC is. But I think that's probably the case normally anyway, right? Like,
everyone's got a weekness, man. Everyone's got a blind spot.
But I think that if you have an OC that can really talk, you have an OC that puts up numbers that they believe in and that, is good in a living room, that will really help too. But what I think really helps is having people on staff that believe in the head coach wholeheartedly. And I think he'd surround himself with people that have proven it and that believe in him and his vision. So that would help.
Last question, Eskimo Randy, how many former FSU players would you pick to be head coach of FSU right now before you got to Deion? Oh, he would take Odell.
Somebody tweeted at me.
T-Buck, Winky, maybe even Derek Brooks before he got to Deion.
Somebody tweeted at me. I'm not going to say somebody. I'm going to find it.
I'd probably take.
The reverse on Twitter tweeted at me. I just want to know why are you so against Deion becoming the next head coach, besides him not having any college football coaching experience? And the answer, reverse, is in the question. That's why. Again, I don't think Deion's ever shown any. He's never shown any want to be a head coach, and now all of a sudden it comes open and he throws his name in, knowing that he's not going to get it. It seemed more to be about Deion than about Florida State, and that's kind of what bothered me. I think Deion would be in a man. Here's how I'd sell it. Gosh darn it! If Odell becomes the head coach and he can make Deion the DB's coach, I'm all about that life, man. I really do, because I tell you what, and I don't think Deion is though.
No,
Deion doesn't want to pay those dues.
No,
Odell's paid his dues for 30 years. But Deion doesn't want to come in and be an assistant and have to go grind on the recruiting trail. Deion wants the big office, even though he hadn't done anything at the college football level. But if you could tell me that Deion was going to be the DB's coach at Florida State, I would be all about that, because he believes in Odell and he loves Odell, and I think he'd sell Odell to those kids he was recruiting. I couldn't imagine that.
Could you imagine Deion coaching a 19-year-old kid? Like, man, just run faster. Run faster. You're so slow. Run faster.
Well, sure. It's like the great hitters that couldn't be good coaches. Like, hey, why don't you just – that ball that's on the outside corner, why don't you just hit it over the left field fence? if you're left-handed. Well, I don't understand why you don't just do that. It's really simple. But the thing about Deion, though, is he was an incredible practice player. He really did work hard at practice. Mickey always says he's one of the best practice guys he ever had. So I do think Deion, it wasn't just sheer athleticism. That dude worked really hard and could really teach some things to kids. I really do believe that. I think he could teach techniques to these DBs, and they wouldn't be Deion, but they'd be getting taught by somebody that knows what the F they're talking about in a big way. But yes, no, I wouldn't have him as my head coach. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know that I don't know that the list is too long.
Yeah. I think I would take Deion before T-Buck. If you're my head coach, I would take Winky ahead of
No way.
Deion,
I'm definitely on T-Buck. I'm team T-Buck all day. He's put his time in. Louisville, Mississippi State, played in the league for almost as long as Deion. It seems like he was in the league for a long time. And the thing about T-Buck that I like is he wasn't the prototypical cornerback. He wasn't 6'1" and a track star like Deion.
Yeah.
He became awesome because of, he was 5'10". Yeah, he had to be a technician, and he had to be a guy that went and got the ball, even though he was 5'10" and played like he was 7'3". Like every ball that was in the air was his. And that mindset is something that's really hard to, I guess it's hard to teach, so I don't know why that would help, but that's what I was about to say. But he could at least try to instill that. But yeah, man, I like T-Buck. I think T-Buck would do he needs to get here first. Let's get him on staff first. And then maybe in 2029, he's the head coach.
Well, if you get Odell, you probably get T-Buck as your DB's coach.
Hey, man, I'm all about that. Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right, we got plenty more questions.
Odell played with T-Buck the 1 year in '89. They were teammates together. So, hey, it's all coming back together, folks.
Full circle. We got more questions to get to. We'll do it tomorrow, as well as the over-unders, and who knows, maybe some more head coaching nuggets that we can tease as you use the promo code FSU New Era to get the latest on the Knowles over on War Chant. He's Corey Maslin. Thanks for listening to Wake Up War Chant, presented by Zaxby's.
If you want an adventure, you could climb a mountain or ride dune buggies through the desert. Or you could just head to your neighborhood Zaxby's. Introducing the Smokehouse Cheddar Barbecue and Southwest Chipotle Filet Sandwich Meals. They're brand new, and they'll take your taste buds to wild and exciting new places. Both feature our famous hand-breaded chicken, and they're both available for a limited time. Only at your neighborhood Zaxby's. And don't miss Jumanji: The Next Level, only in theaters.